Y'all, I don't know, y'all. I don't know. I'm just gonna talk about Scream. It's not Scream. I'm gonna talk about the Saw movies because I really love the franchise and I just want to talk about them. The original idea for this video was I wanted to go through each trap and really talk about if each person who was put up to that test deserved death as a punishment. But there are a lot of traps, and I don't want to do it anymore. So I'm just going to talk about them. There's 10 installments in this series. I've seen them all, a couple of them multiple times. Others only once. So let's get into it. Saw. The franchise as a whole, right, is interesting because they understand like what a franchise, like, okay, to me they are the best horror franchise in my eyes, hands down, is Scream, but Saw is a very close second, and for different reasons, but I think in similar aspects, right? So we have Scream, which is 6 movies, 7 soon, but before this decade there was only 4, and for those 4 you're following the same 3 people, and you even get that in Scream 5. So you're really just following a singular story throughout the films, which is different than other slasher genre, slasher franchises like Halloween, kind of, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. Those are, you have Terrifier, you have a villain who is the center of the franchise, and they go from different set of victims to different set of victims to different set of victims. Scream, however, it was really about the survivors and following them, and that's why I love it so much. And then you get to Saw, which I think is an interesting take, because you have the central character of Jigsaw, you have John Kramer, and then you have all of his apprentices that take on his work after he dies, or sometimes alongside him. And it honestly took them 10 movies to actually center the movie around John Kramer, which is wild, but the Jigsaw killings are kind of, they're obviously the audience draw, but for fans of the franchise, I think the big draw that keeps us coming back to Saw movies is actually the continuity of the films and the way they weave the story, which I think is so interesting to me, especially as someone who's not a big fan of I'm not a big person on movie series. I don't really care. Okay, so yeah, the continuity is what keeps us going. You have the first 3 Saw films, which take place in relative sequence, one after the other, and it's honestly a very solid trilogy. And obviously, up until Saw 7, they were just pumping these babies out. So 4 is where the timeline gets a little wonky, because 4 takes place at the same time as 3. I can't remember much about 5, which I will... But doesn't 5 like take place at the same time as 4 partially as well? And then 6 and 7 are after 4 and 5, but there's still like wonky shit going on. Then you have Jigsaw, which takes place before 1? Jigsaw takes place before 1, I believe. Spiral, we'll get into Spiral. And then Saw 10 takes place in between Saw 1 and 2. So, it's just a wild story to keep track of, but I think for a studio that obviously has this money machine of a franchise, they're making the right decisions by keeping each installment close, besides Spiral, close to the characters that we admire, not admire, that we like to see, and keep it within this same sort of world. It's very tight-knit. Unlike franchises like the MCU and Star Wars, where they're like, oh, you know, there was like more toucan in the back of the bar, and now he's gonna get his own show. And then you're going to need to watch that show in order to see the new Star Wars trilogy. And then there's also 6 other shows, and one of them is an animated one for kids, but it's actually really important. Yeah, we don't get any of that here. And it's nice to keep a franchise tight like that. So that's why I respect the Saw franchise. I am a big R fan, which I've already said on this channel. I'm wearing my Evil Dead shirt now. And the funny thing is, I'm not even a big gore fan, but I also think the Saw movies, the Saw movies have a certain level of, like, morality to them. It's almost like they're really talking about something far deeper than the torture porn genre that it started. There's a lot of critique of society in there, and I'm, like, really saying it, especially in, like, Saw 6. Saw 10, like, kind of, it's like an anti-capitalist film that's making all of this money, and it's really funny to me that people see them and then they're like, oh, this is torture porn. Yes, there's a lot of gore and a lot of questionable morality from every single Jigsaw there is. You know, are they killing for fun, or are they killing to teach a lesson? Are these traps even designed to be survivable? But at the basis, there's a lot of interesting questions that come out of watching for me. It becomes very philosophical and, like, morality based. So maybe I'm just a film student, art student, looking too hard into the text. I don't care. It matters because I gave it meaning. So basically Jigsaw is a communist. Alright, let's talk about this. Saw 1. Okay, so the first Saw is my favorite gay love story. Compared to the other Saw movies, it is relatively simple. There's really one major trap going on, and that's the bathroom trap. But it does an excellent job with character and setting up stakes. I think on its own it is a great movie, and definitely one of the best of the franchise. I mean, there's nothing that you get in all of cinema, honestly, that compares to the twist at the end and Zepp's scene playing. There's nothing, any time I hear that music, I feel like Cocaine Bear. And it introduces us briefly to my personal favorite character in the entire franchise, Amanda Young. My fucking queen! At the time of her introduction, she is the only known survivor of the Jigsaw serial killer. She had the infamous bear trap test. And she wins. That is my girl. That's my girl. She's queen from literal first moment on the scene. And I will say, I think like a lot of people love the two little gay boys stuck in the bathroom, tied to chains, but the most memorable moment of the first movie for me is the bear trap scene. And obviously, John Kramer being there the whole time? The whole time? What? The whole time? But yeah, let's move on actually to the second film in the franchise, which is my favorite installment. Saw 2 is the best movie in the Saw franchise. Saw! So, Saw 2 is where, obviously there was a budget increase and we can leave the fucking bathroom. A lot of it happens from the police viewpoint because, one, they're interrogating John Kramer for most, if not all, of the movie. And the police chief, I actually don't know if he's the chief, I cannot recall, but the cop that we're following, his son is in the trap. What is the trap? The trap is a house. And a bunch of people, including Amanda, wake up in this house and there's personalized traps for each of them in the house, and they have to work together to succeed and get out of the house. Meanwhile, there's toxic gas coming through the pipes. So they're running out of time and they gotta work together. And of course, the one thing that any person in a Saw trap would do, they're not going to work together because they're in a state of duress. The traps in this movie are fucking great. I mean, you have the needle pit, you have, I don't even know how to describe it, the antidote box. Oh, I'm so stupid. There are so many traps in this movie that are just really, really good. But the ending got me the first time. I think it's my favorite. If there's like any, people always say like, oh, I wish I could watch this again for the first time. I feel that way wholeheartedly about the end of Saw 2 because I did not see Amanda turning out to be the next Jigsaw on the cards. So that really threw me for a loop the first time. Turns out Amanda is John Kramer's apprentice. He was so inspired by her willingness to survive that that he wanted to take her under her wing. She's one of the only people who's ever actually understood what he's trying to do with the tests, and they're working together and they're scheming. It's just a fantastic movie. We really pump up the vomit green filter. It just looks so cool and grainy in early 2000s, and I mean, perfect cinema. Perfect cinema, actually, in fact, yes.
Taxi!
Gay cinema. I don't know, you have gay lovers in the first one. The opening kill of Saw 2 is this guy with his dick out. John? Do you want to tell me something? Johnny, baby? Saw 3, the final John Kramer movie. Not really, but the final one in the timeline. Basically, boiling it all down. Basically boing, 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 what? Okay, basically boiling it all down. John and Amanda have kidnapped. Is she a doctor or is she a nurse? Hold on. Let me fact check. She's a doctor. They have kidnapped her and put this head apparatus that Amanda has built on, and they need her to do emergency surgery on John, or he will die. By the way, John has terminal cancer, which is a very big plot line throughout the entire series. Throughout this, John gets a particular penchant for the doctor. They have some good relationship, and Amanda's jealous as fuck. She rigs the traps, and for both the doctor and her husband, who's also kidnapped. I think his trap is like trying to find her. The big twist is that this was all Amanda's test. This bitch gets tested like no fucking other. She has a test in the first movie, a test in the second movie, a test in the third movie. And John had known that Amanda was rigging the traps, and he doesn't want a murderer following in his footsteps, even though, come on, John. You are a murderer. So we have the death of Amanda in this one. Big mistake. Huge. Why did they have to kill my wife? If she wants to murder people, okay, let her. What did she do wrong? What did she do wrong? Nothing. Also, it's just another gay movie. Like, if she wanted those people dead, I'm sure they deserved it. That's Amanda and the doctor. They're lesbians. Okay? They're lesbians. Just, John. It's lesbian jealousy. It's a lesbian issue. I never want to be involved in lesbian drama. They go hard, okay? Gay men are bitches. But lesbian drama is like psychological warfare. So this movie, anyways, John, his neck is slashed. So goodbye John, goodbye Amanda. There are no killers left. The franchise is over. Okay, let's get into Saw 4. I really do believe that this is the introduction of basically the new wave of big important casts that we have. So we have like Detective Hoffman. He's an important guy. You got Agent Stram, you got Jill, Jigsaw's wife. And Hoffman is basically the lead of this film. And it's all his test. Right. So, this whole time we think we're following Hoffman, who is being tested by a tape he found in Jigsaw's autopsy. So it's like, oh my god, this man is crazy that even in death he's planned this all out. We're following Hoffman on this journey, and then the big twist when they pull the rug out from under us is that this has been happening at the same time as Saw 3. Jeff, the doctor's husband, is there with a gun, and he attempts to shoot Hoffman, and then the bigger reveal happens, and that it's Hoffman is Jigsaw's apprentice as well. So now we have a new Jigsaw to follow. I don't care for Saw 4 very much, because this is when shit starts to get stupid. Do I think it's also kind of cool? Yeah. That the timeline does all this, like, winky wonky shit. But this is when it's like, okay, now I'm like still trying to wrap my brain around like exactly what the fuck happened. And maybe I am just stupid too. Then we get to Saw 5. And, bitch, I need to read up on this, because what the fuck happened in Saw 5? Oh. Okay, Saw 5. Saw 5, we have like another gay affair. It's like Hoffman versus Stram, like the good guy, the good cop, bad cop movie. Once again, Saw 5, I don't care for that much either. But I will say the end is great. So basically Hoffman sets up this whole elaborate plan to frame Stram as Jigsaw's apprentice, and he succeeds. Or does he? No, I'm pretty sure he does. Saw 6. I love Saw 6. And it speaks to what the franchise can be, because you have such a late sequel outshining the ones that came before it, you know? Which is rare to do in a franchise. They do it again with Saw 10, but we'll get into that later. So I'm just gonna break a couple things down. Oops. The opening kill is really great. One of the best traps in the franchise. Oh no! You have two people with head harnesses on, and they have like screws in that will just like, you know, if they don't cut off enough of their body in time to put on a scale, and they have to cut off like the perfect amount of flesh. One of them is a fat guy, and the other one is a skinny girl. So obviously he's like, oh, I'll just like hack away at my stomach, hack away at the fat, and that should do. The skinny girl says, I'm winning this. She cuts off her arm, and she wins. And fun fact, she won the competition reality show Scream Queens to do that scene. That's sick. I think it was her first acting role, and she kills it. She's really fucking good. And she could have been another Amanda. But we don't see her again. But she's really good. Or maybe we see her again. I know we see her post-game. I can't remember if that is in 6 or 7. But Queenie chops off her arm. Great trap. So Saw 6, besides its great opening, also just has a really sick plot. So there's kind of two plot lines going on here. You have Hoffman, who is trying to get away with framing Stram as the apprentice, but also like kind of losing it a bit. He's not doing the best, and other people are kind of onto him. No. And he's basically trying to work with the police and cover up his tracks at the same time. Meanwhile, he also is doing John Kramer's like final request game, which is to go after the guy who denied him insurance that would have probably saved his life from the cancer. I love this. This is when I start to say that they get into sort of anti-capitalist ideas where they force this guy into basically like a maze of his co-workers and people that he's denied insurance from. And he's like, is your life better than theirs because you have more money than them? Can you kill your co-worker or this person you denied insurance from and say that it was just? Because that's what you do every day at your desk. But now you're just actually seeing the actions that you have let yourself get away with for all these years working for this company. Wow! Cinema! That is cinema! That is cinema. That is politics. That is fascinating. Fascinating moral dilemma. This, besides the opening, there's also the carousel trap, which is fucking amazing! No. Even though I don't like Hoffman. I think you can tell that from my dislike of 4 and 5. I don't care about Hoffman very much. Love the character of John Kramer. Ride or die, Amanda Young. Hoffman, I don't care, but I love seeing him kind of sweat. I love seeing him sweat. He does survive this movie, though. Just barely survives this movie. So where do we go from here? We obviously go to Saw the final chapter. now known as Saw 3D, because it ain't the final chapter. Because when is the final chapter ever really? Okay, so I'm not the biggest fan of Saw 7 either, because, like I said, Saw 4 we start to get a little silly. Saw 7, let's just start retconning. This is really Hoffman's 11th hour. And I've said I hate Hoffman, and I'll say it again, why they gave the reins of the franchise to the worst of the apprentices, I'll never fucking know. But thank God I don't have to see him again. Or do I? So it's him really struggling. He's set up a trap for someone who faked being a Jigsaw survivor. Ooh! He set up a trap for someone who is faking being a Jigsaw survivor, and that's going on. But the actual plotness that's happening is Jill, Jigsaw's wife, who thought she had killed Hoffman at the end of Saw 6, actually saw him survive and has set up this whole plan with, like, internal affairs to liberate him. No. Doing the opposite of liberating him. They want to catch this motherfucker. Hoffman starts to realize that this is what's going on, and Jill dies with the reverse bear trap. I like seeing someone die with the reverse bear trap. But the whole twist of the movie comes out, of course, at the end, that Dr. Gordon? Forgive me if that's not his name. The blonde gay from the first film actually survived. And is also an apprentice. And it was his thing. It was his task to get involved if Jill ever got harmed. So he takes out Hoffman. Yeah, like, I'm okay. I'm actually really good on that. It's very, like, not cool. Not that it's not cool, but it's very, like, that's it? Like, if we're gonna take out Hoffman, like, let's at least make Jill do it, because, in a way, Jigsaw is... not Jigsaw. John Kramer is someone that the franchise kind of wants us to root for in a way, and if we're supposed to despise Hoffman, let's have Kramer's wife take him out and finish his plan instead of this random person we thought has been dead for 6 movies. That's... I'm not feeling that one. Jigsaw! Now, Jigsaw is like a fine movie, but not my Saw. I believe this takes place before the first one. And I guess, like, that's a twist in and of itself. But we reveal one of the people... So basically, it's this... it's a group of people. And they go through a Jigsaw game. And it's John Kramer leading it, which is great. John's back. And I guess that's the big problem that this franchise has, and that's why they do all this weird fucking continuity shit, because they killed off the main villain in the 3rd installment. So everything's got to be a flashback. Everything's got to be like, oh no, we're going to put it here, and then like this one takes place between the 1st and 2nd scene of Act 2 of Saw 3. Like, maybe you shouldn't have killed John, or maybe you should have just stopped at 3. So yeah, we get to Jigsaw, and the big twist at the end is that one of the people we've been following throughout these traps is... Actually, that's not right, is it? That's... Okay. So the big twist at the end is one of the people we've been following the whole movie, kind of. He's actually John's first apprentice. Fuck Amanda. First of all, disrespect. I hate that. Secondly, if he's this first apprentice, where's he been this whole time? And why has he never come back? So, I mean, well, there could have been a mention of him maybe in Saw 10. Or maybe Jigsaw. I don't know. Jigsaw's just like... It is good standing alone, but in the franchise itself, with even all the continuity being so convoluted at this point, it even feels like a stretch to me. I'm like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this information? And that's why it was the last Saw movie for a very long time. But then we move on to probably a bigger mistake.
Spiral from the Book of Saw.
Jesus. Okay. So around Spiral, which is, I guess, their like attempt at switching up how they tell their stories, and they're just doing like a crime. The whole thing is told from Chris Rock's point of view, and he's a cop. So it's very much the cop investigation and legal investigation, and I don't give a fuck about this movie. I saw it back in theaters. It was the first movie I saw post-pandemic in theaters, and yeah, I'm good. Like, that's all I'm gonna say. But then we get to Saw 10. Saw 10 is great, and I know that the people who made it said, like, oh, this is the real Saw 2. You could have called it, like, Saw 1.5. I think there's like the Lion King 1.5, maybe? No, but Saw 10, is a really great movie because it's the first movie that really centralizes John Kramer as a character, and for about, I don't know, the first, I want to say like the first 2 acts of Saw 10 are completely based about John, nothing to do with games or anything. Then again, I don't know anything about how the acts are structured, but I would say like Act 1 is him doing cancer treatment, Act 2 is him going to Mexico and getting the treatment, and then Act 3 is him figuring out, well, I would say Act 2 would probably end with him figuring out that the treatment was fake and they just cut his skull open and then closed it back up. But then Act 3 would obviously be the game. So Saw 10, we follow John. He's in a cancer patient support group. He runs into someone out when he's like buying coffee, who says he went overseas, got a experimental procedure done by this company that is struggling to get, I guess, like recognition by like official boards or whatnot, but completely cured his cancer and he's fine. So John calls these people, they accept him into the program, they're gonna do this brain surgery on him, but he has to go to Mexico in this like really, they like schedule a whole thing to make it seem like he's being kidnapped. They take him to this remote location, and he gets this fake surgery done, and then he realizes, oh shit, one, these people fucking stole my money, they fucking stole my life too. They sentenced him to death, and they deserve to die. So he sets up a test for them in Mexico, and Amanda's there. That is one of the weird things about this movie. I wish we saw like really how Amanda came on board with apprenticeship. And if that scene exists somewhere and I can't remember it, I'm sorry. But Amanda's there in Mexico, and they put on a really good game. This movie is great. I don't think I enjoy it as much as Saw 2 or 6. Maybe it's tied with 6. From like a filmmaking standpoint, it's just a really great fucking movie. Incredible character work, which we haven't really seen since Saw 1. The traps are great. I will say everyone like is going crazy about the eye trap that turns out to not even be real in the movie. The eye trap, I thought it was one of the worst traps in the entire franchise. So stupid. And that, the eye trap itself is actually where I got the idea to make this video, because one, the eye trap was one of the like most survivable, most like, oh yeah, I can absolutely do that, and in a heartbeat I'll do that moments in the entire the guy had to break both of his hands within a certain amount of time with just flipping a switch, or else his eyes will be vacuumed out of his head, and he doesn't flip the switch. That is like, how brainless do you have to be? Break the hands and keep your eyes, you idiot. Anyways, so John targets the fake doctor and her fake crew, and they get what they deserve. This is where we get into the capitalism is the root of all evil thing again, which it really is, okay? The way I see fit, we have to totally rebuild society as a whole. Yeah, but this doctor is a serious evil woman. And I will say, the thing about... This is the thing. Obviously, we know that John and Amanda are going to get out of this trap, because we know that this takes place before Saw 2. So we know that they're not in any real danger. Even so, why would you make the big climax of the movie that like John is being waterboarded to death with a child? Which is crazy, but I didn't feel like the stakes were as high as other films in the genre, because they just weren't, you know? Obviously, we want to see these people get fucking rocked. And some of them you feel slightly bad for here and there. The bitch who couldn't cut off her leg, well, she cut off her leg, but like couldn't do the rest or something like that. Okay, the one who gets like radiation poison out the wazoo, I felt bad for her. And I liked that she was an addict just like Amanda, and Amanda... Character work, Amanda felt bad. Amanda was trying to save her, making her tests come later than the rest. Obviously, I didn't want to see the kid get waterboarded, and I wanted him to live through that. That's where the stakes came from that, but I knew that John was going to survive. So, it just became, like, I knew what was happening. I didn't really get thrown off by, the appearance of the guy later on, who ends up being, the doctor's partner. Huh? And I knew that as soon as they got into that room, I knew that a game would start. And that's when the Zepp theme started playing. So, overall, Saw 10 is a really great movie. Just like for standards of filmmaking that the franchise has. But as it fits in the franchise, it's it is such a welcome addition, but there are no stakes. To me. I think if it was the first Saw movie you were watching, you'd probably be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is crazy. You know? But I think for fans of the franchise now 10 movies deep, you really are watching it to see the characters get fleshed out a little bit more. Much more than they ever have been, which is really nice to see, right? But there's not a lot of stakes going on, and like I said, I think that is because they killed the best characters in the series far too early. Hey! Now, Hoffman appears in the end credit scene. Okay. Honestly, he's a nice addition to see. Like I said, I really love the original storyline, as convoluted and messy as it gets, and I don't like its conclusion as much as I wish I did, but I am all for them going in further with the characters that we all like and fleshing them out a bit more. Hoffman especially, I think, is someone who needs a little bit more fleshing out. And I'm curious to see what the future of the franchise looks like, because Saw 10 did really well, so I'm sure Saw 11, the announcement is coming soon. Which is crazy. But what are they going to do? What movies are they going to set it between? What scenes are they going to set it between? You know, like... Or is it like teenage John Kramer, like, sets up his first trap in preschool? Wait a minute. I like that idea, not gonna lie. But anyways, I just wanted to talk about the Saw movies, and I had a lot of fun doing it. Tell me what you think about Saw in the comments. Tell me what you think about Saw in the comments. Oh, thank God the mic was on. If it wasn't on, I'd